asks for their name. That asks for their name when they sign in. And then if you're worried about bombing, here is the require meeting password. And that makes up a generic password, but you could have that say type workshop or just about anything you want. But I recommend that for video, if you are having a problem with people, turn that video off, and enable waiting room is the other one. So you can bring people in as you want them to.
So when you require registration, is there something they have to put in, or it just starts keeping track of them?
It asks for their name.
Oh, okay.
They can make up any name they'd like, but it just asks for any name to put in there. And I find that useful afterwards is you can run reports on them. So under any meeting you use, say meetings, let's go back in time a little bit. And you can generate a report. The reports are very limited in what you see. It will tell you who showed up and when they registered, but it won't tell you a time for how long they were in that meeting. That problem hasn't been fixed yet. It doesn't give you a log off time, only a log on time.
Hey, Tyler, also, when you choose that video on or off, when you're doing the meeting,
yeah,
I assume that that's the default when they come in, that you can then turn it on once you're there to say you can turn your video on. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, that's just for the initial.
Mm-hmm.
Got it.
So the time, the recurring meeting, and does anybody have any more questions about Zoom or how to prevent unwanted things from happening?
Tyler, I'm curious. This is Dicus. I'm curious about you mentioned about locking the chat window. How does that work?
That happens over in settings.
No, but I'm just in a session. Why would you want to lock the chat?
And this is again for people who are coming in trying to disturb your session. They'll put in links or unwanted images in a chat or unwanted links mainly that you don't want people to see. Or it's been mainly known for racial slurs by a lot of news outlets is what's going in those chats.
Hey, Tyler?
Yes.
By disabling chat, like I feel like that would prevent a lot of functionality with like, hey guys, just post your questions in the chat and then I'll answer them towards the end of this whole tutorial or whatever we're doing. Like, where do you lie on that? Do you disable chat all the time, or do you kind of try and trust your students first? Or
I always trust the students. I trust the students first until it gets out of hand, and then you could lock people out and go from there.
This is Mark. I know in the webinar, if you set it up as a webinar, you can only have the questions go to you, the host. I don't know if there's a way to do that in just a general one where you just have them chat to the host so they can send you questions. But because otherwise the students are going to, sometimes they start throwing chat up there to each other and saying things. Do you know if you can do that, Tyler, or somebody else Ian was nodding their head?
A couple of the Zoom meetings I've been on, the chat is only for the person who's holding the meeting. So there won't be any crosstalk behind the presenter. So if I'm presenting and two of you wanted to talk, you could not chat each other. You could chat to me and you could ask me questions, but being able to go from participant to participant doesn't happen. You can only go to the person who's hosting. So it doesn't actually disable chat in that sense, because you can still talk to the moderator. You can still offer questions to the teacher. I hope that answers the question.
So just to clarify, so if I disable chat, they can still send me a question?
Yeah,
Is that correct?
because you're the host. You're just disabling Mary talking to Jimmy.
Perfect.
Mary can still talk to you. Jimmy can still talk to you. And teachers are the worst students.
Yeah.
So we had a happy hour of teachers that I used to work with in Arizona, and the person hosting turned off chat because they knew that the other participants in the group would be talking to each other instead of directing to whomever is holding the meeting.
I've already sent a private message. Yes.
So thank you, Ian. That helped me understand it a lot better.
That's my understanding of it. I haven't hosted as someone who's, I've been muted. I just.
So I wanted to chime in too. This is Briggs. Tyler, do you know, or have you used the templates feature at all? And then also breakout rooms. If you could talk about either of those two features, that'd be awesome.
Okay, so I haven't used templates, but breakout rooms you can assign in the advanced, and this I guess this again comes in that advanced is the allow host to assign breakout rooms when scheduling. So if you know you're going to be you run and you want groups of people, say 4 or 5 people, you can assign breakout rooms. But again, that comes in the advanced version, which your school can provide for you.
So what does a breakout room do? Like, is there somebody in that room that has to moderate that room?
I do not know that.
Typically, yeah. We use Zoom at my church, and when we have discussions, we use the breakout rooms. And so ahead of time, the minister will assign folks to a breakout room. They'll get spread up into groups, and then it works just like this. Usually there's a set time. So, and there's a clock, so you can time down to come out of the breakout room and come back to the general session.
Yeah, and then you can either assign certain people to be in certain room, or you can do it randomly. And then only people, one thing to remember is only people who are host can see the breakout rooms feature. So if you want another person also have the right to set up a breakout room, you have to ahead of time like assign them as a co-host or host.
And hosting, you can assign anybody as a host, but if there is no, we've come across this in tutoring sessions, if after 40 minutes, nobody has shown up, that it kicks you out of the session. And when you jump back in, you're not a host. So you have to be assigned again.
Okay, that probably because it's a free version for Zoom, so you have the 40 minutes limit.
Yeah.
Okay.
There's no limit on the advanced version.
Yeah, that's right.
I know our school uses breakout rooms for tutoring math. So anybody can join the session, and then you go into the different rooms for what math you're in, Math D, Calculus, Calc 2, things like that.
I just want to make a general comment. I've been using Zoom for a couple of years now, and it's really evolved. And I've used a lot of other platforms too. A lot of my meetings are hosted. I've used Business for Skype, Microsoft Teams, GoToMeeting. Zoom, to me, out of all of them, is the best. It's been getting a lot of flack in the news for the security issues, which I feel like they've done a good job of addressing in a pretty timely manner. But I'm just curious what other people's thoughts are, because this platform is the most stable that I've seen.
Yeah, we're pretty much in agreement here that we're all going to use it. Some of the professors have tried doing live streaming on YouTube for classes, because you can see a scrolling chat, and that's failed pretty miserably. And this one has a lot of versatility in the fact that you can share a whiteboard and anybody can write on it. So our professors have gone as far as they'll use a document camera, put up a document, and then anybody can draw on it and ask, hey, what is happening at, say, this pivot point for statics? So that's been one of the best features we found of it so far. And the school has gone as to buy writing pads for everybody who wanted them.
That is something I would love to see somebody demonstrate on this call sometime. If anybody wanted to volunteer for that, that would be awesome.
Yeah, I believe it's
So
just sharing a notepad and people can write on it. If you are getting used to that, a mouse is pretty terrible. It's really hard to control, but you can go on Amazon and buy a plug-in writing pad to a USB that gives you a lot more versatility.
right, this is Randy Schuster. Sorry for piping in late. I was on a class that I was supposed to be in. So one of the things that I've been using is Google Hangout Meet. Google Hangouts is pretty weak, but their enterprise and educational level one is pretty good. And it's got some, doesn't have a lot of features, but it's got a lot of them. And the one that I like the best is the closed captioning. And if I do a record of my closed caption, it's really nice for some of my students that don't speak English very well and need to be seeing the words come across as I'm speaking. So I don't know if Zoom has closed captioning, but that's actually the reason why I use the Google Hangout Meet versus the Zoom, is really just for that one feature. And I do have a large percentage of my students that English is their second, third, or fourth language. And I find that useful.
So yes, Zoom does have closed captioning. If you can see on my screen right now, I'll highlight it. It is there, but ours is currently locked by the admin, and that's just because the amount of time it takes to generate those captions. Those come at a later time after your recording session is over. It's not live.
Yeah, it's amazing how administration always turns off the useful stuff, huh? Because Google Meet has almost all of these same things. Of course, our administration hasn't turned any of them on. But that's interesting to know. I got to check that with our with Los Rios to see if we've got that capability turned on for us too. I haven't seen it, so that's a good thing to know about.
So right now our admin has closed off closed captioning and this group HD video, and that's come from most likely Zoom has asked us to do that, and that is to save on bandwidth and storage space, because we receive emails, or we received in the last couple of weeks, saying if you don't need your session to be recorded, please don't record that session, and this most likely has come because of that.
Great, yeah, and so we're sort of the same way. I mean, I tell you the truth, I'm like you. We've got everything running, right? Whatever is useful to a student or to a client is what we end up using. This is really great to be able to see all this in here. I'll tell you, my favorite recording thing is just a PowerPoint. I just put the screen record the PowerPoint on, and I don't have to worry about anything, and it all pops up later on, and it doesn't take any online. It doesn't take anything going over the internet. It's just done on my screen share. So that's something that if you do want to do some recording for reasons of history or being able to play back, just plain old simple PowerPoint screen record is so simple and so easy, and you get it right away.
So you got some great comments going on. Let's keep moving on. So Tyler, you want to just talk just briefly about what you're doing with rolling out with Tinkercad and a couple of other things for your labs, your YouTube channel. Can you just talk about that for a minute or two, and then let's go on to the next subject.
Yeah, over the last couple of weeks through these transitions, I've been scouring any and every source I can for simulation software, and I will admit I've downloaded some sketchy Russian software recently. Don't do that. But I keep falling back to Tinkercad, and I couldn't help myself. So adapting these to both physics and engineering. So our circuits lab, we are stuck now. How can we get this equipment to students? And it's just impossible to do. I mean, you have function generators. A cheap function generator is still going to cost you a couple $100s. You can't find an oscilloscope. You could possibly get apps for your phone, but then who's going to want to try and get a connector, run an app on their phone and screenshot? It's just impossible to do. But with a Tinkercad, we can make that work. They do provide NPN resistors, op amps, and we can still run our labs to a point. A lot of the details that we like to show, such as going in and looking at turn-on voltages and saturation, we can't get. So we're basically using this for how do you read data sheets, how can you build a circuit and know that the circuit will work. We like to show a lot more detail, but for now, this is going to work for us, and we're gonna flow with it. These components can be moved around. They don't work until the simulation is started. But the amount of components that are given to us is quite a number and quite useful for doing both analog and digital, as in they provide different gates, and I enjoy having the students still needing a data sheet to interpret what these pinouts are on the chip. So I'm rewriting 3 or 4 of our labs now to use Tinkercad for our students going on the end of the semester.
About your YouTube channel you're developing.
Okay, so I'm also developing a YouTube channel. I have about 10 videos on now, and I'm adding 4 to 6 weekly, and that's going to continue all the way through the rest of the summer. And I will provide that and share that channel with everybody. It's Sierra College Physics and Engineering, and that's going to contain physics labs, demonstrations, circuits labs and demonstrations, and when I get closer to the end of the summer, all of material science. So I know a lot of people on this room are about machining and manufacturing, but it has to start with the base material itself. So I hope you find some use in the work I'm doing, because I'm going to show everything from basic spark testing to hardness testing, heat treatment, quenching, and later going to polishing and microstructure. So all that will be online, and look for that by the end of summer for use with you. And I will be glad to share any data sets. We have a Tinius-Olson 60K tester in which we can pull apart samples and crush concrete samples too. That goes to, and I can provide the complete stress strain curves for those. So if anybody has materials they want, I'll be more than happy to pull those apart and provide any data set you'd like to. Because with manufacturing, some of the most important things I feel is it's great to know I'm going to be manufacturing steel today, but there's so many different types of steel that affect your chip load, whether you're using a low carbon steel, a high carbon, or something like we refuse to even work with. We let the students pick materials to test, and we've actually said no more snap-on tools, as they're just not allowed. Just they have a too high chrome and vanadium content that they'll chew through bits when they try to get machined, or they'll even max out different loads. So no snap-on tools.
We have a question, Tyler. Are the circuits in Tinkercad, are the circuits native to Tinkercad?
What do you mean? Could you rephrase that?
Well, I'm just reading the question, and I think I understand the question. It says, are the circuits here native to Tinkercad?
So like Tinkercad has a library of things that you can draw from. Is this something that you created, or is this something that Tinkercad has already?
Oh, these components are what Tinkercad has. I just pull onto the screen what I'm using, and you can delete them on and off.
Great.
But I'm going to save each one as you can share and export these different circuits. So our circuits lab usually contain 5 to 6 different parts. Sometimes it'll be an inverting amplifier or a non-inverting amplifier. So we will share like a basic circuit with them and then say, change these values so you get a gain of 2, or change them so you get a gain of 5. And that way they know their limit. You can't have a gain of 100 when you only have on a 1 volt signal, when your op amp only goes as a plus or minus 15 value. So the important part for circuits is not that always that the students get the circuit, it's they know the limitations, and there has to be ample value in letting them mess up. We see more use in seeing where something fails versus when something goes right. And I found that in Tinkercad, the more you look at a circuit, the more it's messed up by the multimeters themselves, because there's an internal resistance in those meters already built in. So the more I ask for something to be looked at, the more the measurement's off from the nominal value. And that is greatly appreciated that was a design feature and not a design flaw.
Hey, Tyler, this is Dicus. This has been great information. Do you mind if we move on to the next presenter?
Yep, I'm gonna stop my share.
Perfect. Hey, Mark, are you still with us?
Yes, I am.
So Mark, can we just transition to you, introduce yourself, and
Yeah.
let me say this first. Mark's running similar types of sessions like this over in the Bay Area with the schools that he's involved with. And I was on his call last Wednesday. And Mark, how long have you had your website? 4 or 5 years?
Yeah, the website myself, which is, I'll show you, but it's also in the chat box.
Right.
The Bay Area Manufacturing Careers website I've had for, I don't know, probably 3 years. And I've used it. I'm a regional director, just like Jeff Briggs is for your region. And so I use it as kind of a resource to share out information. The discussion group that I'm going to talk about very briefly, I just started about a week ago.
And are we also invited to be a part of that if we want on Wednesdays?
Oh, for sure. Yeah, I am. Oh, yeah. I can post the link to that. I'm sorry, I was trying to share my screen and something else popped up. Yeah, I want to make sure because I don't have anything wrong up there, but okay, years.
When I was on your call last week, Mark, you had some great resources already on your website. And I think that's what the teachers on these calls want. They want a place to go where they can just pick up something that they might be able to use. So take us away.
Can you see my screen? Just give me a thumbs up if you can see it. Somebody should. Okay, great. So this is my website. It's, let me minimize it a little bit. I'm always unsure what's being covered and what's not on your end. It's Bay Area Manufacturing Careers.com. And you can go to that. And what I put together is just a way, because these meetings are great. I saw that Jeff and Steve had this one, and I created one for the Bay Area myself. And just a way for people to capture the details so they don't necessarily have to go back and try to go through the recording of the webinars if they don't have time, or if they just want to share something themselves for others to go to. So if you go to this website, you can click on more over here, and there's this K16 discussion forum, online learning, which I just created. Go there. And then it's just really the sorts of things that people are sharing here, just general discussions that you can click on, but really more than likely it's the online resources. So there might be tools for all disciplines. So we, last week we talked about Slack. There's some information about Zoom tutorials. If you're not, aren't aware of a gamifying app called Kahoot, there's some information there. some information about proctoring online exams. So I'm encouraging people to go there and create a new topic themselves. You know, if you want to talk about machining, there's, you know, CNC information, things like that, that we really want to get people just a quick note up there, a quick point to something that you may have been, you know, working on yourself, some quick input about, you know, Zoom features if you want to. And we're just trying to capture this throughout the state so that people have a place to go. I was just talking with DGen just an hour ago, and you know, we're looking at how do you get access to Fusion if you have, you know, students don't have a computer at home, or they have a Chrome, you know, computer a Chromebook that really can't run Fusion 360. So for instance, we're looking at some information about remote desktops or other software that you might be able to use. So this is a place to try to capture these learnings so that we're not all relearning that information again. And for instance, I can post the webinar recordings. This is my webinar recording from last week, and I can post a link to this one as well so that people could go and look at that. And this, for instance, shows the topics that we talked about. So if you're particularly interested in one, you can just go directly to this webinar recording and watch it. Okay, so you could watch that.
Start recording now.
Okay, so that's my 3-minute intro. Does anybody have any questions?
Oh, this is great stuff, Mark. So what time is your meetings that you're holding always at 11 a.m. on Wednesdays?
Wednesday at 11, and I know everybody's schedule is different. So again, what I'll do is after the meeting, I will come to this discussion group website and post the agenda, kind of what we just talked about, along with the recording. I can do the same for this for this recording, Jeff and Steve, if you want me to do that so that people can have access to it. Yeah, like for instance, I would really encourage you to look at this for any of you dealing with if you do any drawings, or if you're, you know, kids teaching them isometrics or, you know, 3-dimensional views and things like that. Spatial Viz is a great little piece of software that I think they're offering for free right now. And so it's something on your app, and you can you draw with your finger what different shapes look like, or 3D views, and it tells them whether or not they're right or wrong. So it's this sort of little things that we learn and are learning each on our own that we can try to share with everybody else. Okay. So 11 a.m. tomorrow, but again, if you can't make it, you can come and check out the recorded webinar.
So Mark, this is very useful. I think if we can all collaborate together, it'll make us stronger as a unit.
Yeah.
And our students benefit too.
Yep. All right.
So, Jeff, would you like to tell us a little bit about what you've been thinking about?
Sure. Actually, so yeah, Mark, thank you very much for sharing that. Actually, I'd like to say that we're trying to figure out where and how to host similar resources. Obviously, we have all of the webinars that we recorded for Shop Talk. They're huge. So I'm trying to figure out where we're going to host those. And Steve and I were talking offline about some ideas. So hopefully by this time next week, or by the time we have our next Shop Talk meeting, I'll have that sorted out so that we can kind of have our own version of what Mark just shared with us. And then obviously what I'd love to do is in our resources, point to Mark's page where there may be some overlapping resources, but also Mark can point to our page, because I think the whole idea here is we're all just trying to share whatever we have. So that's the first thing. The second thing is I wanted to get your opinion on, so one of the things that Steve was doing for a while there, and everything came to a grinding halt with the COVID, is he was organizing, guest speakers in classrooms. So one of the thoughts that we had was maybe we can still do that, except we'll bring the guest speakers to you through Zoom, and maybe host the guest speaker on, in their shop, or maybe, do like a virtual tour of their facility. We wanted to get your feedback. Would that be something you guys would be interested in and would want your class and students to participate in? So I'm seeing some heads, nods, thumbs up. Okay. So
Jeff, can I add a little bit to this?
yes, please.
Because partly what we're talking about, so imagine I'm back in the classroom and everybody's got something going on and I need to have some type of activity for my students. What about if I had, it's like a press break operator from XYZ company, and I say, okay, next Thursday at 2:00, this person's going to talk to us about showing the press break, how they got into that position and things like that. And all of our students, regardless whether they're in my class or your class, could go onto this Zoom call, depending on capacity, and actually experience that. That's kind of what we were talking about. What do you think? Kind of put together a menu of different types of short presentations, 15 minutes to 30 minutes, that would be beneficial to your curriculum and to your students.
Yeah, I'm seeing some comments come through. People like the idea. Let me ask you, Tyler, were you going to say something?
Yeah, we have a intro to engineering class that isn't necessary for transfer, but we find a lot of students fresh out of high school go into this class because we do anything from concrete to circuits to robotics and programming, and it does two things. It either lets a student know sort of where they want to go to, or it gets them out of the program. But accompanied with the class is bringing in a lot of people from around the community that we have relationships with to say how they started and what they do. So this could be a really good opportunity to build up a little library of all these people, say, this is how I got into this profession, and this is why I do something. So I like that idea.
Excellent.
Try something in the next couple of weeks. Give us in.
So yeah, I've got a couple of ideas of some companies we can reach out to. If anybody has any ideas of companies that you know of that that you have a good relationship with, throw those out into the comments for me, and I'll do some outreach and try to engage with them. My other question along those lines is, what could go wrong? Is there any potential drawbacks that we have to watch out for and be prepared for in advance if we do something like this? Reason I ask is I'm a little nervous hosting multiple classrooms, right? On, we'd probably have to set expectations. Ian, were you going to say something?
Well, I think if you use the norms that Tyler was talking about at the beginning with regard to only being able to talk to the host, turning off chat, so there's no crosstalk, not allowing for people to upload certain kinds of content, that you'd be all right. The only other thought I had was proprietary information if you're touring somebody's shop and looking at their build. But if everybody's got to know their own business, though.
These are great points.
Okay, well, I will get to work. Hopefully I'll have an update for you guys with some potential for next week.
Outstanding. So are you thinking, Jeff, a presentation on this call for us as the teachers, or just some ideas that could be rolled out in the near future for students to view as well?
Just some ideas
Okay.
to be rolled out for the students. Yeah, I want to hash it out here first with everybody, make sure everybody's on board, and then I'll probably want to do a test case on a smaller scale first.
Okay. So along those lines, does anybody want to chime in with something that they would benefit you for next week's call. A software, a delivery system, a way of assessing student work.
I would like to hear anybody's opinion on such things as how do you test online to prevent cheating? We are struggling right there because we've noticed our entire grades have gone up by 15 to 20%. And any ideas would be useful because the honor system is great, but it just doesn't work sometimes.
Yeah, there are features in Google Forms where you can lock out the screen. So once they start the test, that's the only window that they can see. However, with personal devices, there's nothing you can do if they have other access to electronics.
Yeah.
Yeah, like I could be taking the test on my screen and still be looking up answers on my phone. So the computer might not allow it. Are they doing it in a testing center? They're all testing from home, aren't they?
Not all from home.
Yeah. Yeah. They're innovative.
We've seen things such as the students have to use their webcams and then they're actually watched by another person the entire time. But that's a little iffy on itself.
I've been tackling that same problem in the classroom. I was trying to write tests for a long time, just like, hey, here's the full internet. You can use anything you want, but just get it done in a certain amount of time. I agree with what Ian said, those Google Forms that are timed, but there's workarounds on that. I think it's not an answer, but the best solution is just to really specific, really good questions that involve a lot of thought, maybe not just these run-of-the-mill free, multiple choice, but maybe a little more free response where it requires some authentic answers. It's harder to grade, but I don't know.
So, Tyler, I think one of the other places to look is what are they doing on regular distant ed classes? So how do they grade? I mean, these folks have been teaching classes online for a couple of years now. What is their process? And I agree with Colin is that the traditional way of testing is we probably can't do that anymore. And by having questions that they have to write a statement are probably a better way to evaluate your students.
This is Ian. Changing it to a sequential style of question too, as opposed to a singular response, because a lot of what we do is process oriented. Instead of what's the bandsaw, you'd have a list of 5 or 6 or 7 steps, and they would have to put them in order, which is a little bit harder to go and look up on the internet, maybe. But things that are problem solving, the blade is binding on the bandsaw. So how do you correct this problem? And then have a list of things for them.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I like that, Ian. Those are good questions, stuff like that, where they have to describe a process. I've had more success, but it does take a lot more grading. So you got to balance that out a little bit.
One of the real interesting ones that we're starting to work with is, you're going to laugh, is Minecraft. Minecraft has a native ability to have multiple participants in it all at the same time. And it's there's a program called FME, which is a flow metrics engineering or something like that. And we're starting to look at data scans and putting them into Minecraft. And actually, NASA's using it, Stanford's using it. Flipping Minecraft, it kills me to have to tell my son that Minecraft might be useful. But that's some of these collaborative spaces may turn out to be helpful for that. We'll keep you up to date to see if we actually get the ability to use it.
Say, Dee, does Autodesk have anything that they use in collaborative spaces?
I mean by collaborative spaces. I mean, when it comes to tools or?
Working on a project together or working on solving issues or.
The only thing I'm thinking of right now, so Tinkercad, you guys already talked about, and then Fusion, we have a way for, like Fusion team is a way for multiple people to collaborate and work on the same project. I don't know if any of you heard of that.
Okay, I just thought maybe you guys might already be there.
Yeah.
Looking for another suggestion or two, maybe for next week's topics or the next couple of weeks.
Honestly, Steve, we go live on Thursday, so I'm just kind of preparing for that. And
Yeah.
I'll probably have a ton of questions next week on people once I get going, but I actually haven't got going yet.
Yeah.
So I'm kind of at a point where I don't have very many questions.
Yeah, like everybody's going live, at least the high schools are going live this week, different days, I know.
I would take a quick look at the discussion group website. There's not a whole lot of stuff, but like the agenda that we covered the webinar, as I said, there were a few neat little tools that I learned about, the Spatial Viz app and things like that. I just, after my discussion with Dee at Autodesk this afternoon, I just set up a meeting tomorrow morning to try to find out about a remote desktop that you can use, like Chrome remote desktop, but some districts probably won't allow it to get access to software on your computers at school. But I'm going to check into using some other cloud-based software to access Fusion 360 and SolidWorks and other things. And hopefully I'll have a little bit of an update tomorrow during the webinar, but I'll send that information out.
Excellent. So any parting thoughts for the group?
Steve, I have a thought.
Yeah,
kind of goes back to your previous question. Now that the high schools are going online, and this is a time of year that the colleges have, they have like their career day fairs where the high school students come and visit the campus.
Right.
Would the high school instructors would like to, maybe they would like to do Zoom webinars with the different programs at the colleges to enlighten
I think that's a great idea
of different choices?
Yeah, all that. I know we were working on going to that Pathways to Paychecks, I think it was called, and I was talking with Neil a little bit about that, and you and I have talked on years past about that.
Right.
Yeah, we would, if there's an online version of that, that'd be great. Any of these things where we can get speakers in and get them off the traditional classroom settings and bring in something different, because they're just gonna be stuck behind a computer all day. I think all of this stuff is gonna be even more engaging to students right now by doing the kind of things that you guys have talked about in this session.
These are great ideas. Now we just got to pull it together in a short time.
Yeah, and I think, I know like at City College, Sacramento City College, our kind of our outreach coordinator, Mila, I don't know if you've dealt with her. She would be, and all the colleges in the area, they all have their own Mila, right? And that might be the people to talk to. Okay. And Steve, you would probably coordinate this, or Jeff?
I think between Jeff and I, we'll get it. We'll these are great ideas. So thanks.
So if you want, I will email you and Jeff or everybody Mila's contact information, if you so desire.
Yeah, please do, John. That'd be great.
Yeah. So in fact, you know what? Let me do something really difficult here, because I'm not. When I grew up, communication was what a string and two tin cans. So this computer stuff can be somewhat challenging.
Yeah, I'm sure
Before I
Sierra
started-
College can help too. We can maybe set up a live chat or things like that with welding, advanced manufacturing, and or mechatronics.
Yeah, you can help with that, Tyler?
Yeah, I think I can make that work.
Okay.
So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put Mila's contact information. I think I just did it. I think I have to enter. Okay. Do you see it on the chat board?
Yep.
Yep.
So there you go. Do I have her email on there?
No.
No. Well, that I could do that too.
Tyler, and with your site, it'd be great if you could go to that discussion forum and just spend a minute and throw up that link and just a little description of what you're going to do for other teachers.
In regards to what again?
You have a YouTube site, right?
Yeah, I believe I put up the.
If you could go to the discussion forum and just create a new topic and just say, hey, this is available, and you know, a 2-sentence description of it.
Sure, you
This is
got
on
that.
Mark. This is on Mark's site.
Yeah, the one I put in the text.
Okay.
I can do it myself, but I'm trying to get others to be aware of it, and
Yeah.
so they're just not just me putting stuff up.
Okay, I put Mila's. I'm sorry to interrupt, but I put her email address on chat, so now everybody has it.
Thanks, John. Great suggestions.
Yeah.
So let's do this. We're at the bottom of the hour. We've got a lot of things to do. Some of you got some heavy lifting coming up. Let's get together next Tuesday afternoon, and maybe we'll spend a little time just kind of debriefing how your experience was launching your classrooms, and maybe get another presentation or two. Any other parting thoughts?
As always, guys, thank you so much. Really appreciate it.
Thank you, guys.
Hey, good luck to the high school folks going online.
Thank you all for participating.
Take care, you guys.
Thanks, Mark. Thanks,
Thanks,
Tyler.
Mark. Thanks
Thank you.
everybody for all your
Yeah, thank you guys
contributions.
both.
You guys rocked.
I did a bunch of masks. Well done.
Thumbs up.
Bye, guys.
Take care.